Hi, we continue in the book of Deuteronomy, and I've read chapters 5 to 7, and I'd like to share the lessons that I learned with you. Now, chapter 5 starts with Moses just reiterating some of the laws or the things that had happened in the past, and he starts with the Ten Commandments, reminding them that the covenant made with God at Mount Sinai wasn't just with them, or it wasn't just with their ancestors, but was with them as well. If you remember, this is the generation that remained after their ancestors had died in the wilderness for rebelling against God. Moses recounts how the Lord spoke to them from the mountains, blazing with fire, and the people were afraid and overwhelmed at the fact that God could talk to them and they lived. But they couldn't handle it, obviously, and they asked Moses to be the go-between. And this pleased God, if you remember. And God was like, that their hearts will always be, turned to Him. Their hearts will always be like this and fear and obey the Lord's commands. Moses urged them again to be careful to obey God's commands as they enter into the land in order to prosper and live long lives. In chapter 6, where Moses calls the Israelites to make wholehearted commitment to God's commands and decrees, we see a popular Jewish prayer, and that's what the prayer is called, the Shema. And it is in chapters 4 to 6. Shema in Hebrew means listen, and that's because that's the beginning of the prayer. So it begins with listen, but it is in its full context. It is a call to obey as well. It is not just a call to listen to God's words, but it's a call to also obey the things that He commands. Moses tells the people that before they occupy the land, God will clear out all the 7 nations more powerful than them so that they could dwell in the land. And He was doing this out of love. His promise to His ancestors. What He had told them was that He would drive out the nations little by little. Like He knew what He was doing. If He drove them all up at once, wild animals might overtake the land and attack the Israelites. So He was very intentional in what He's doing. He warned them not to be afraid, and this is Moses, of God's plan or think of it as impossible. Several times throughout this book, Moses urges the Israelites to remember God and what He has done for them. In chapter 17, 12 to 15, he tells them of all the blessings that they'll have if they listen and obey God. And if they destroyed all the idols in the land that they were going into, because at this point we know that these 7 nations all rebelled against God, were all considered God's enemies because they worshipped idols. Now, this is the lesson I learned of God's character from these chapters. God was pleased to bless the Israelites with so much in this new land, but He didn't want them to turn away from Him, to worship idols and forget all He had done for them in love. This is because He wanted continuous relationship with Him. He wanted their hearts and He wanted their joy. And this is the same even today. God wants our hearts. God wants to be, I don't even think it is first place. I think He wants to be the center of our hearts. And so it should be, because, everything that He does for us, He does out of love. Thank you for joining me today, and tomorrow we'll continue. I will come back and share the lessons I learned after reading Deuteronomy 8 to 10, and I look forward to seeing you. Have a lovely evening. Bye.